it is Dungeon Master Mark, and today we're going to be starting our how-to 3D printing tutorial for those of you who want to learn how to use a 3D printer to print 3D dungeon terrain. So basically this stuff is going to be matching the Dwarven Forge. So here's the 3D printed piece. This is actually printed in low resolution. So you can tell it has a couple small little holes here and there, so actually this needs to be a little bit thicker. I did this one as a quick print, which I'm going to show you guys the video here in a second. Here's the actual Dwarven Forge piece. So I'll have a video, I'll post them side by side here in a second so you can see just how similar they actually look. I mean, it's pretty shocking. Now, this uses a free file, and I'm going to be sharing these on my website. I'm also going to have a link to where you can download the whole file, where there's, I believe there's about 30 different pieces. You have walls, curved walls, floor pieces, and then some of my own files that I've customized, which I'm going to be hosting for free for you guys to use, free of charge. Nothing, obviously. So I want you guys to be able to print and make as much stuff as you want. Now, as I was saying, these ones I actually printed on what's called a thick wall setting. So this is kind of a low setting. See if you guys can see that, but you can actually see into the walls on these. And this actually does not use a honeycomb. So you can actually print these a lot thicker if you want them thicker. These ones here, though, are just, like I said, for test pieces. But the actual finished pieces would obviously have the hard top, like that. So you can paint them all up and use them with your Dwarven Forge, or if you don't use a Dwarven Forge and you just want to make your own dungeon, you can do that as well. So bear with me one second. I'm going to go ahead and move the camera, and we're going to go over some basics of the 3D printer. All right, stay in too. All right, and we're back, guys. So for this particular tutorial, we are using the Micro 3D, or what some people call the M3D printer, from M3D, obviously. It is a very, very low cost and very small printer, as you can probably tell. I mean, the size of my hand. I'm not a giant by any means. But this will actually print objects up to 3.9 inches, so almost 4 inches from side to side and 4 inches high. This particular machine uses a non-heated bed. So you can actually use tape, or my favorite material to use is the glue sticks, which allows your PLA or your ABS to stick. As you can probably tell, it's got a little bit of sticky residue on there right now because I've been printing the last couple days. But what will happen is, on your printer, you want to use something to help it stick. So for this purpose, we're going to use craft glue, or like an Elmer's glue stick, which is going to help the actual material stick to the print bed. That way it doesn't move around while it's printing. And then, oops, let's go ahead and turn this off here. So, like I said, as far as printers, you want to find you a printer that meets your need. That's going to be the number one thing you want to look for. If you want to be printing objects that are larger than 4 inches by 4 inches, obviously you're going to want a little bit larger printer. But for this type of project, like I said, if we're printing dungeon tiles, a smaller printer like this is just fine. So there's no reason to go out and spend $2,000 on a printer that has a 2 foot by 2 foot bed when this one works just fine. Print time is one of those variables that this particular printer is a little bit slower printer. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but that means you're going to be waiting a little bit longer on your prints. As you can tell when I showed this earlier, the thicker you put your walls and the more infill, which is one of the settings of your 3D printer, the slower your print's going to be. So for this one, I put thick walls, which I believe is the second fastest printing setting on this particular printer. And this took about 2.5 hours, I believe, to print this particular piece, which I'm going to show you guys in a time-lapse video here towards the end of the video, just how exactly it goes about printing. That way you guys can kind of get an idea and see it. And then the software this particular printer uses is an open source software called Cura, which I'll show you guys. Let's see if I can move this over here. You have to excuse me, I'm in my basement where I do most of my crafting and stuff. So here's the laptop. I'm not sure how well that's going to show up, but basically in this particular program, you can choose a design. Like, let's say we want to do, so we want to use this particular wall piece, and it slices. In other words, it figures out exactly what is needed to print this particular piece. Now you can actually rotate this, and you can also change the size of those if you want. So if you want to make a dungeon that is, say, a little bit wider pieces, let's go ahead and put all these to 1.4. It's not quite 1.4, but it's close enough. So if you wanted to make 1.5 inch squares, you could make 1.5 inch squares. So like I said, now it's going to be about 50% larger than the piece we were working with before, but it is possible. So you can customize your pieces. You can make a dungeon that fits the Mage Knight minis, or maybe something even larger if you wanted to. Now, when you go to print an object, you're going to have lots of different settings. The first thing is obviously what type of filament you're using. A printer like this one, you're only going to have one type of filament at a time. This is a single extruder. In other words, how many types of filament it puts out at any one time. So for this purpose, we're using PLA. It is a biodegradable filament. It also sticks extremely, extremely well. So if you're using a non-heated print bed like this one, it means it's going to stick extremely well, and it takes paint wonderfully. I cannot say enough good things about PLA. Now, the one thing you want to look at is prices. There's a lot of different types of material. This is ABS filament, and the ABS is a little bit stronger as far as the filament. Normally, it's a little bit pricier when you buy the filament by the roll. And then you can also buy ABS and PLA filament by what's called a 1 kilogram roll. Let me see if I can get my roll over here. Now this is a 1 kilogram roll. So as you can tell, if you're going to be doing a lot of printing, you may want to invest in a larger roll. This I believe is about $12. This is about $22. So if you're going to be doing a lot of printing, go for the big roll. Now, when you shop for filament, a lot of times you want to do some research. Different companies have different quality. So you don't necessarily want to go just by price. You want to look at what type of temperatures the filament melts at, how well the filament sticks. So I know this is a tutorial, but I just want to let you guys know, like I said, you got to do some research when you buy a printer or when you buy some filament. It's not going to be clear cut. Anytime you go to buy anything, you definitely want to double check, make sure it's going to fit your needs. Now back to the actual software. The next setting we have is going to be where it allows us to choose our print quality. Now the print quality is not so much as to how well defined it is. That's going to be a lot more to do with your actual file. This is actually how fast it's going to print. So you can have it set to ultra fast or ultra low, which prints extremely, extremely slow. On this printer, I believe it goes all the way down to, I believe it's 400 microns. And the expert mode prints at 50 microns. So the faster you print, the less quality you're going to get. You want to go a little bit slower so that the quality or the copy of the print is a little bit better. It's not going to leave stringy messes. Like you may be able to see a little bit on the front of these where there's some stringy bits. Then the other half, the other half of that is going to be your fill density. That's going to be how thickly filled your file is going to be. Now this one here was at low. If you put completely full, that would be completely solid on the inside. So if you completely printed this completely solid, it's going to take about 2 or 3 times longer than normal, but it's going to be extremely, extremely durable. And then your last setting you want to look for on all printers is support material. Now on a piece like this, you really don't need support material because you don't have any type of overhangs. On some more difficult pieces, support material will help keep for the piece from actual warping. And then you also have what's called a model support or a raft, which is something that helps your actual piece stick to the printer as it's printing. Think of it as kind of a piece underneath. Here's the actual raft I printed for this piece. So basically this raft sits underneath, and then this piece sticks on top of it. So this is kind of like just an extra piece to help it stick to the bed while it prints. And that is pretty much it for this particular printer. Like I said, this one does not have a whole lot of bells and whistles. There's a lot of things you can customize, which we're going to get into customizing in a later video. So this one right here is just very, very basic. And the last thing I want to go over is how to zero out your bed. Now, every printer has a different setting. This particular printer has what's called a calibration mode. So all you do is you're going to click on that, and you'll see you have this kind of silly little video of a cat with your different markers. So all you're going to do is you hit apply. And what it's going to do, on a printer like this, it's going to go around each of the 4 corners. It's going to print a square. And all you're going to do is you're going to measure those. If any of them are off, you're going to adjust on the program how many degrees up or down. So basically like millimeters or centimeters. So that's how you're going to zero out your bed. So you want your bed to be completely zeroed out so that when you print, everything is completely even, so everything sticks properly. So stay tuned, guys. I'm going to go ahead and update this video to YouTube at this point. I'm also going to go ahead and add a time-lapse video of the printing. And then the next video we show is going to be how to customize some of your prints. So stay tuned, guys. We're almost done with the very first episode.